Dear students, today we will discuss Animal Farm, that is chapter 5 of Animal Farm, and in this chapter we will see the rise of tyranny, a crucial turning point where collective leadership crumbles and Napoleon seizes absolute control through manipulation and violence. First, we find that Molly becomes an increasing burden on Animal Farm. She arrives late for work, accepts treats from men associated with nearby farms, and generally behaves contrary to the tenets of animalism. Eventually, she disappears, lured away by a fat, red faced man who stroked her coat and fed her sugar. Now, she pulls his carriage. None of other animals ever mentions her name again. She was always late, as I have already said, for work, and as this is a quotation from Animal Farm. And she excused herself by saying that she had overslept, and she complained of mysterious pains, although her appetite was excellent. So, as she becomes increasingly negligent, she prioritized her own personal comfort over the farm's revolutionary cause. And one day, when Clover saw her talking to some men from Pilkington's farm, she denied it totally, and she eventually abandons the farm for human luxuries. Then we find that there's a great divide between Snowball's vision and Napoleon's approach. Snowball always wanted to build a windmill to save labor long term, spread animalism's principle to other farms, where Napoleon's focus is on immediate food production, amass weapons for defense and control. The two opposing philosophies clash as the leadership fractures over the farm's future direction. So, one day what happens is that there is a coup. Napoleon unleashes 9 ferocious dogs to chase Snowball off the farm, ending democratic debate through brutal force. So it happened that Snowball has finally completed his plan, all assembled for a great meeting to decide whether to undertake the windmill project. Snowball gives a passionate speech to which Napoleon responds with a pathetically unaffecting and brief retort. Snowball speaks further, inspiring the animals with his descriptions of the wonders of electricity. Just as the animals prepare to vote, however, Napoleon gives a strange whimper, and 9 enormous dogs, wearing brass studded collars, charge into the barn, attack Snowball, and chase him off the farm. They return to Napoleon's side, and with the dogs growling menacingly, Napoleon announces that from now on, meetings will be held only for ceremonial purposes. He states that all important decisions will fall to pigs alone. Thus, the democracy at the animal farm ends, and there is a consolidation of power by the Napoleon. No one believes more firmly than Comrade Napoleon that all animals are equal. That is what Schuyler had to say. He would be only too happy to let you make your decisions for yourself. But sometimes you might make the wrong decisions, comrades. Then where should we go? So that is how Schuyler justifies all the decisions that are made by Napoleon. And Napoleon declares that a special committee of pigs will be there, presided by himself. The ultimate manipulation is done. Napoleon claims that the windmill was his idea all along, accusing Snowball of stealing the plans. The project he once opposed becomes absolutely necessary under his leadership. So, this is how what happens is distorted and propaganda is done. The windmill was the project by the Snowball. But later on, it is claimed by Napoleon and then justified by Schuyler that it is the project that was Napoleon's idea. Schuyler convinces the confused animals to accept this contradiction. Then there is a slogan that comes up, that is Napoleon is always right. That is we can say that this is like a dictatorship, a slogan that promotes dictatorship, the slogan that optimizes forced loyalty and ends critical thinking on Animal Farm. And in the end, we find that there is a new order. Now, this order is that initially we find that there is a democratic debate, animals could voice opinions and vote on farm decisions, but opposition is silenced, Snowball is expelled through violence and intimidation. All policy decisions made by Napoleon's Pig Committee, this is what in the end it comes to. The turning point, chapter 5 marks the definite end of Animal Farm's revolutionary ideals and birth of Napoleon's dictatorship. Democracy dies, collective decision making is replaced by authoritarian control. Truth becomes malleable, history is rewritten to serve Napoleon's narrative. Power corrupts, and the revolution leaders become the new oppressors. So, this chapter illuminates Napoleon's corrupt and power hungry motivations. He openly and unabashedly seizes power for himself, banishes Snowball with no justification, and shows a bald faced willingness to rewrite history in order to further his own ends. Similarly, Stalin forced Trotsky from Russia and seized control of the country after Lenin's death. Orwell's experience in a persecuted Trotskyist political group in the late 1930s during the Spanish Civil War may have contributed to his comparatively positive portrayal of Snowball. Trotsky was eventually murdered in Mexico, but Stalin continued to evoke him as a phantom threat, the symbol of all enemy forces, when he began his bloody purges of the 1930s. These purges appear in allegorized form in the next chapter of Animal Farm. Girls, and there is one more aspect that we can discuss that is windmill. So windmill is the symbol of freedom for the animals. It will generate electricity, and animals will be saved from the drudgery of the work. And Snowball is the one who wants this to happen. But Napoleon doesn't want that this should be there. So he feels that after banishing Snowball that it is a necessity and it should be there. But he takes the credit of inventing the idea of windmill. And we see that there is use of dogs. Napoleon has monopolized the farm sources of defense and protection. The dogs could have guarded the farm and warded off predators in order to create his own private secret police. The pigs claim a parallel monopoly on logic. Squealer linguistically transforms Napoleon's self-serving act of banishing Snowball into a supreme example of self-sacrifice and manages to convince the animals that no contradiction underlies the leader's abrupt about-face on the issue of the windmill. Each of Napoleon's acts of physical violence thus gains acceptance and legitimacy, while a corresponding exercise of verbal violence, political subversion depends on the subversion of logic and language. Thus, this is what we see in the chapter 5.